everyone sitting here today. Altogether, you will ensure the FDNY remains the greatest fire department in the world. Congratulations, keep up your spectacular work, and thank you once again for all you do for the FDNY. As always, God bless the FDNY and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Attorney General Letitia James.
Oh, come on, we're in a house of God. First, simmer down. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for getting it out of your system. First, I want to recognize Reverend A.R. Bernard in his absence. I want to recognize Monsignor Jamie. I want to recognize my pastor, Reverend Anthony L. Trufant of Emmanuel Baptist Church. I want to congratulate all of the individuals who are being promoted today. I want to thank them for all that they are doing. I want to thank them for going into danger when others run out. I want to thank all of the fire marshals who are being promoted today. I want to thank you. You have worked with me as a member of the City Council, investigating a number of fires in central Brooklyn, and I thank you. I want to thank all of the members of EMS, particularly during these challenging times as you deal with individuals who are struggling with mental illness. And I have seen you all throughout the city of New York in resolving a lot of those issues, and so I thank you for all of that. And I thank all of the members, and I congratulate the family members who are here today to witness the promotion of their loved ones. And it also is an honor and a privilege to be here today as we swear in Reverend Pam Holmes Saxton as chaplain of the FDNY. I want to thank Commissioner Kavanaugh and Chief Hodgins for that recognition. And today we are making history, swearing in our first African-American woman chaplain of FDNY. As someone who has known Reverend Holmes Saxton for years, I'm proud to be here with her. You see, Pam Holmes Saxton is a member of my church, Emmanuel Baptist Church, and I'm proud to be with her. But I know that she is not alone. I see countless number of members of Emmanuel Baptist Church who are here. Thank you for being here, and also members who are uniformed chiefs and captains and EMS lieutenants and fire protection inspectors and those within the civilian ranks. Because today we are witnessing the shattering of a glass ceiling, the setting of a milestone, a chipping away, obviously, of an invisible barrier. I've known Pam and her dedication to FDNY, including serving as director of the EMS FDNY Help Fund. She has a stellar reputation as a director, a manager, an organizer, and most importantly, a woman of God. And Reverend Holmes Saxton, the FDNY, and all New Yorkers have a leader with proven excellence in executing her pastoral duties, but also a history of involvement and working for positive change and progress in the community. She is humbled. She is focused. She is respectful. She has the skills and character to serve as a dynamic chaplain for the FDNY now and in the future. And so I say to Pam, to pray for the bravest. Pray for those men and women who exemplify true courage. Pray for those who have put their lives on the line. Pray for those every time that the fire siren rings, they spring to action. Pray for those firefighters who stood with me when my mother was dying and they worked on her for an hour in my house, not knowing who I was. And I thank them. I thank those members of FDNY who worked on her body and prayed over her body when she died. Some may even be here. Some might even be booing me. But nonetheless, I pray for them. I pray for their strength. I pray for their love. And I also pray, Pam, please pray. Pray for all of those who are still suffering from the 9/11 illnesses. Pray for over them each and every day. I thank you and I congratulate you. It truly is really a testament to your leadership as a pastor and a public servant that you would attract such a large and diverse crowd. I look forward to your many years of service to our city, and as to members of the FDNY, I congratulate all of you and look forward to working and serving with you all. God bless you and thank you. Okay, we ready? Good morning, everyone. My name is Letitia James, the Attorney General of the great state of New York. I'm joined here today with Mayor Eric Adams, Senator Brad Hoylman Siegel, Borough President Mark Levine, Councilmember Gail Brewer, Mimi Boblik, Cynthia Strombla from Parents Against Vaping Cigarettes. We are also joined here by the Principal Stephen Noonan of the Maxine Green High School of Imaginative Inquiry, who helped arrange today's event. Also Principal Kevin Froner of Manhattan Hunter Science, who is also joining us today. Principal Catherine Bonucci-Smith of the Kaufman Special Music School, and Principal Bridget Garzaniti of Arts and Technology High School, and Assistant Principal Bruno, and of course my favorite, Jalissa Jarvis, who's a student at Arts and Tech. That was the thing, come on. Who will be speaking with all of you this morning. It's an honor and a privilege to be here on the campus, and thank them for graciously hosting us here today, and all of the elected officials who are here as well. It is an honor and a privilege before you today. As most of you know, there's nothing more important than the health and safety of our children. Our mental health is really critically important, which is why we passed legislation, as all of you know, to limit the harmful effects of social media. And today we are focusing on protecting their physical health by addressing the youth vaping crisis. Big tech and big tobacco use the same playbook to get to our children. Addictive social media feeds and nicotine get our children hooked on scrolling and vaping. And I'm so glad that none of them have phones in their hands this morning. Thank you. And we've seen firsthand just how harmful this is to our kids' mental and physical health. As Dr. Froner will share, when students at Manhattan Hunter Science High School turned to vaping and got hooked on nicotine, mental health challenges like stress and anxiety only got worse. Kids as young as middle school began vaping and inhaling nicotine because they were lured by catchy marketing and enticing fruity flavors and flashy parties and promises of being cool. Juul, the largest e-cigarette company, intentionally marketed to children, including on social media, and got them addicted to e-cigarettes and caused irreparable harm to their bodies. And that's why we sued Juul for its role in creating this youth vaping epidemic, a crisis, and for its deceptive and misleading marketing that caused real harm to our children. As a result, we secured a historic $462 million multi-state settlement against Juul, with $112 million going to the great state of New York and $27.1 million going to New York City. That deserves a round of applause. These funds will be used for education, for prevention, for research and enforcement programs to prevent kids and young adults from vaping, to help young people quit vaping altogether, and to support local enforcement of vaping laws and regulations. And they will be distributed to every county in the state of New York and BOCES. This settlement also includes restrictions on the company's marketing and sales to protect and prevent minors from vaping. Juul cannot directly or indirectly target youth in their marketing. Juul cannot fund or operate youth education and prevention programs. Juul cannot portray anyone under the age of 35 in any of their promotional material. And these funds and restrictions will go a long way in protecting our children and help us address the damage that Juul caused and created. For years, Juul deliberately hid the health risks of its products behind clouds of smoke, basically to pad their profits, and intentionally target our children. Juul falsely led students and consumers to believe that its products were safe and that their cigarettes contained less nicotine, when in fact we all know that they did not. One pod of Juul contains as much nicotine as a whole pack of cigarettes. Juul targeted young New Yorkers with its ads and through our campaigns, all while downplaying the harmful effects of Juul. And in at least one New York City school, a Juul representative falsely told high school freshmen that its products were safer than cigarettes. Juul lit a nationwide public health crisis and put addictive products in the hands of minors who thought they were doing something harmless. And e-cigarette use amongst middle and high school students more than doubled after Juul was first introduced in 2015. And minors and youth adults had the highest e-cigarette usage rates of any age group in the country. Here in New York, almost 1 in 4 high school students reported vaping nicotine in 2020, and they were smoking everywhere, even inside schools. And this campus is no exception. The smell of vapes has been commonplace in hallways, cafeterias, and stairwells. And soon we will hear from my good friend Jalissa, who is an 11th grader at Arts and Tech High School, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about the problem. At other schools, the vaping inside of school buildings became so frequent and widespread that schools had to install vaping devices, vaping detection devices inside of school bathrooms and in other rooms. We know the dangers of nicotine and the serious health effects of prolonged use, but today we are taking an important step to help our kids stop vaping and to prevent future generations from getting caught up in the same problems. And we don't have to divert much-needed educational funds for that purpose. We will do everything in our power to protect our kids. At this time, it is my honor and my privilege to introduce our mayor, Mayor Eric Adams. Mayor Adams is someone who has long prioritized the mental health and safety of New York City young people, from investing in gun violence, prevention, to ensuring better access to healthy foods. And at this time, I want to welcome him to share more about these funds and what it will mean to our great city of New York. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. Thanks so much, AG. And we've shared the podium on many of these initiatives and what the Attorney General has done by holding those who are responsible for intentionally targeting our young people. What she has brought to the city in billions of dollars on opioid funding that helps us to go out and do prevention and education. And now we look at another area that targets our young people, and that is the area of Juuls and e-cigarettes. When you think about it, it's unimaginable. Jordan, my son, is in his late 20s, and it was challenging raising Jordan with so many outside interventions. What we're watching now that is happening and zeroing in on our young people now is really parenting on steroids. It is unbelievable what these young people are inundated with every day, and that is why we must remain as vigilant as we push back on those who are specifically targeting our young people with subliminal advertisement using social media, using the attractiveness of colors and products. We're seeing it within cannabis, the gummy bears that are being sold in stores, and we're seeing it now in an institution and an entity like Juul. Juul was clear with their marketing strategy. They knew who they were going after. They were very clear on who they were targeting, and far too often we saw this in those communities of color where young people were being used on this product. The lab has hooked thousands of students on vaping and e-cigarettes, and the long-term health impacts are real. It's not something we're making up. It is extremely real, and that is why this initiative and being able to secure the dollars from the AG's Attorney General's settlement is so important, because it allows us to be forward-thinking on education and driving a real program towards addressing this issue. And it must be youth-led. It is impacting our young people, and they're smart enough to come up with the right strategies and the right information to go after how this has just really permeated their youthfulness. And when you look at the fact that 81% of first-time users ages 12 to 17 started with products like the ones Juul Labs sell. Most have never previously smoked before. Never previously smoked before. This is an entryway to smoking, and all of us know, all the work we've done around cigarette smoking, that to have another entryway for our young people to embrace a lifetime of e-cigarettes or eventually going to cigarettes is something we cannot go backwards. We refuse to go backwards. So the degree Juul decided to put profit over public health, and we must put an end to it. And we cannot thank the Attorney General James enough for focusing on these real quality of life issues. Oftentimes, we ignore them until they are too far gone. She has aggressively identified these quality of life issues. She has gone after these large, huge conglomerates and corporations and stated that we're going to use the power of her office to fight from within and lead on the front. And this is going to become a national movement based on what is being done here. $27 million to support underage e-cigarette treatment, recovery, and enforcement is a substantial amount of money. We are just really proud to add this to our arsenal, as we have successfully done with the money we receive from opioid abuse. We've already banned e-cigarettes, flavored cigarettes in the state. Our partners in Albany has allowed us to do so, in local authority to shut down the illegal smoke and cannabis shops that sell illegal and counterfeit products. These tools are allowing us to create a safe environment for our young people, and I really want to just again thank all who are involved. And this is a moment in the calling from the parent organizations who are here and to our young people who are here. We want to place the power in their hands so that they can charter the course for their destiny in a healthy way. Not only to be academically smart, but to be healthy, not allow these outside interference to impact their health. Again, AG, thank you so much, and I thank all of us who are joined together on this initiative. Thank you.
Again, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, I have to recognize and give a shout out to Mimi Boblik and Cynthia Strumbla from Parents Against Vaping E-Cigarettes. They came to my office early, and they educated me about the fact that Juul had taken a page out of Big Tobacco's playbook. I really want to thank them for all that they are doing. Thank you so much. And now we're going to hear from Dr. Kevin Frohner, the principal of Manhattan Hunter Science, to share more about this public health crisis and its impact on his students. Principal?
Thank you. Thank you for that clap. So we want to welcome you to the Martin Luther King campus. We are home to 6 schools and our own high-capacity hydroponic farm, which grows 1,000 pounds per month. We feed students, we feed families, and sometimes faculty. They sneak in, and we feed them too. We also want to welcome you to a faculty and a campus that leads the city in social-emotional learning. And we began this work well before the pandemic, watching historic rates of anxiety and depression and suicidal ideation and a range of mental health issues that we had never seen before. And I share that because if we're not caring for the whole child, then we're susceptible to organizations, companies like Juul. When I think about all of us in this room, we also struggle, many of us struggle with anxiety and stress. It's hard not to today. But our tools may be, Netflix and a bottle of wine. I'm going off script. For students, though, it's 4 hours of TikTok. It's, 8 hours of social media. It's YouTube. And it's also vaping, right? Kids need tools. And if we're not providing them in school, then I'm really not sure where they're getting them. So I just want to, applaud the mayor. This year, we rolled out school-wide, right? We have nearly 1 million students in this school system, the largest school system in the nation. And we rolled out system-wide mindful breathing. Now, it may not seem like a lot, and I don't know how much you all cover this, but if you think about it, we have an entire school system with nearly 1 million kids breathing every day. So I just want to applaud the mayor for doing something that I found to be incredibly courageous. And then from there, the mayor tackled school lunch. All right, we still have work to do, but we're moving in a direction where we look at the whole child. Are they eating well? Are they sleeping well? If the kids can attest to this. If you're on your phone until midnight, 1 in the morning, we have most of our kids sleeping 4 to 6 hours a night. So what's the cycle? 4 to 6 hours of sleep. They wake up the next day. They come to school. We provide most of the quality food in their lives here on this campus. And then they leave. And then they're susceptible to those companies who would place profit over the human spirit. And it's really sad when you think about it, because, what's the game? The game is, everyone in this room, a principal, teacher, many of you have kids. It's like we're here to support them. We're here to help them grow. We're here to protect them. And I just want to applaud, finally, the Attorney General. I've been so inspired by this, reading what it took to get to this place and everything that you did to get us to this place and hold them accountable. I think that's probably one of the biggest issues we have right now. I think we could agree is the lack of accountability for organizations, for corporations to take advantage of kids. You ended that today. I feel like today is a message to definitely to Juul, but to anyone else, they better think twice before messing with our kids. So, thanks for giving me some time. This is for us here, speak on behalf of the principals, this is the most important thing. But if we're really going to tackle it, we've got to empower our kids, and I know this is work that you're doing with the chancellor schools. We've got to empower our kids to be socially, emotionally sound. If they don't have tools to deal with anxiety and to deal with stress, then they're going out in the world, and then other people solve it for them. So I just thank you. I appreciate you both very much. Yeah.
Thank you. I wish I had a cool principal like that when I was in high school. So the mayor has a very busy schedule, but the mayor wanted to hear from student Jalissa Jarvis. She's a rising senior at Arts and Technology High School, and she's going to share a few words about her experience. Jalissa.
Thank you. I'm nervous. Okay. Good morning. My name is Jalissa Jarvis. I'm a student athlete at High School of Arts and Technology and the captain of the flag football team. To excel in my sport, I've committed to maintaining my health, which includes avoiding vaping. Unfortunately, I've noticed that vaping has become a significant issue among my classmates. It's a distraction and an addiction, leading many students to leave their classrooms to vape in the bathroom or staircase. This not only disrupts their learning, but also affects their health and concentration, making it harder for them to perform well academically and for some athletically. I want to thank Attorney General James for taking on Juul and securing these funds for our city to help support anti-vaping programs. Any school will benefit from an anti-vape awareness program to address this serious issue. These programs will help bring awareness to the dangers of vaping and offer support to students who need help to quit. Implementing these programs will be a significant step toward improving the health and academic performance of students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now we'll hear from our borough president of the great borough of Manhattan, Borough President Mark Levine.
So much. Thank you. Wow. Julissa Jarvis, you are extremely impressive. I don't know when you're running for office. You have my vote. Just don't run against me, please. This is one more morning where I'm reminded that we have the best Attorney General in America. So thank you, Attorney General Letitia James, who is not new or a latecomer on this issue. She has been fighting on this for years, at least 5 years, if not more. It's actually hard to remember back in those days before the pandemic. Seems like another lifetime. But in 2019, we had a full-blown public health crisis with the epidemic of children using Juul and other vaping products. There were 2,000 hospitalizations nationwide. There was a young boy who died in the Bronx. There was a rate of 1 in 4 high schoolers using vaping products in New York City. And when we did a hearing, I was chairing the City Council Health Committee at the time, we had kids as young as 10 come out and testify about the prevalence of vaping amongst their classmates, 10-year-olds. If I remember correctly, even in middle school, we had 1 in 10 kids in New York City who were vaping. This was a very serious crisis that was brought about because Juul deliberately and directly and blatantly marketed kids in their outreach, their advertising on social media and elsewhere. This was a deliberate act. And so there was a group of parents who stood up to fight back, parents against vaping e-cigarettes. You do not want to mess with these parents. And my buddy Meredith Berkman is not here, and Dorian, but these parents inspired me and many others to rise up. And then our Attorney General did what she does so well. She led. And that national settlement that was secured with many other states, she didn't mention it was New York that led that. It was her office that made this happen, extracting millions of dollars and also changes in their practices. And now we're reaping some of the benefits of that. I wish I could say we don't need this money to educate young people, but what we've seen in the last couple of years is that vaping has come creeping back, where because, Principal, you spoke very eloquently about the anxieties of this moment, the dislocation of the pandemic, also the fact, as Gail knows well, the proliferation of illegal smoke shops, which are also selling vaping devices and products and flavored e-cigarettes, which we banned in New York City in the City Council in 2019. We banned them. They're being sold in these smoke shops. They're not always checking for ID. So it's probably easier today for a young person to get access to vaping products than it was even 5 years ago. So this remains a crisis. We need this education money so that the message gets out very clearly that, no, vaping is not good for you. Nicotine is a viciously addictive chemical. And there are serious negative health impacts of using these products. And not enough young people understand that. This money, this $27 million, which the Attorney General has secured, will help us get that message out. So thank you, Attorney General. See, we've been joined by my friend, State Senator Brad Hoylman-Siegel. Thank you again for leading and delivering for New York City. Thanks so much, everybody.
And now we'll hear from Senator Brad Hoylman-Siegel.
Slightly out of breath, Attorney General. I ran here. I did pick my husband up from glaucoma surgery. That's what happens when you're over 50. State Senator Brad Hoylman-Siegel represent the west side of Manhattan. Proud to represent this historic campus, which was also, by the way, a venue for our efforts to get New York City to have the power to lower its own speed limits to 20 miles per hour. I wanted to thank the mayor, who I know has left, and the borough president and my colleagues, Councilmember Brewer and Rosenthal, for their efforts in that regard. We've done a lot in Albany on flavored e-cigs. We banned them. Assemblywoman Rosenthal and I helped lead that effort. I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud to see PAVE and the advocacy around that effort was truly, as my grandmother would say, top drawer, given the fact that we had so many young people, some of us some of them are here today, in the capital of Albany. But holding the manufacturers responsible is really what it's all about. So I want to thank the Attorney General 27 million times for this amazing initiative. She has been a leader nationwide in protecting children and young people. A good example of that is the bill that would stop addictive social media feeds from directly influencing our young people. So thank you for that, Attorney General. This is another example of that. In Albany, we need to do 3 more things. We need to close the loophole on flavored e-cigarettes that are sold oftentimes in shops that aren't under the law. Secondly, we need to make certain to ban all flavored cigarettes, including menthol. We still haven't done that in New York. And third, we need to crack down on Zins, which Zins, rhymes with sins, are those packets of nicotine that you can easily access. And we know that young people are becoming addicted to nicotine through the flavors of Zins. But this is an amazing step forward. Again, thank you, Attorney General. Thank you on behalf of my 13- and 6-year-old daughters. Thanks so much.
And now the woman who has inspected more smoke shops than the city marshal, my former colleague in the city council, ladies and gentlemen, Councilmember Gail Brewer.
I want to thank the Attorney General for both her efforts now and in the City Council. You should know in the City Council she was just as vigilant when somebody needed the mailbox painted. She got paint and went and painted it. So this is a person who definitely does the right thing. And I want to thank Principal Foner, and I want to thank Julissa and all of my colleagues. So my experience has been, just as you here know, because I represent the school, I represent Brandeis. These are 2 big buildings with a lot of high schools in them. And we have 90, maybe now more like 85, smoke shops on the Upper West Side. That's way too many. And when I have been out with the sheriff, you not only find illegal tobacco and illegal cannabis, but you find all of these vaping devices, and they're all illegal. And so not only is this hitting the company that has made these illegal devices available, but it's also, I think, going to help us with the smoke shops. When the sheriff goes in, he takes everything that is illegal. But what's interesting, and this is another wrinkle to this whole challenge, some of the ingredients of the vape have to be tested in the state of Ohio because we do not have a lab here in New York. So it costs money to send, costs money to test, and it takes money to then be able to review the results. So on so many levels, fighting this illegal vaping is important. I have to say, we will take this funding, the $27 million, because schools need help, as you heard from the principal. My experience is, I've even had a principal crying, not from this campus, but another one. Because when you have a young woman vaping in your classroom, it's really, really challenging. Like, what in the world do I do? Where do I begin? How do I get her support? And then, of course, when you're in the bathrooms and the hallways and you smell it and you're in a school, it hits your gut. And so the $27 million will help. I'm sure the young people will be involved, principals like Noonan and Foner and others. But it's this lawsuit that has been successful has so many ramifications for our city. And, of course, let's get rid of those goddamn smoke shops. Thank you.
Any on-topic questions?
It has to do with the device that makes the vaping possible, and you'd have to talk to the sheriff to get the specifics, but he's quite upset because it does cost the city money. We need a local testing lab.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about, like, also the other chemicals besides
Yeah.
nicotine. So,
Everything.
yeah, I mean, a bunch of you guys talked about kind of like the health impact, right? So, did somebody, it's never been clear to me, I mean, I've read up on this somewhat, but like, what are the health impacts of vaping compared to smoking, right? And is it kind of, I'm imagining it depends based on whatever other substances are in
Yeah.
that have not been.
So first, let me just say that of the $27 million, $12 million will go directly to the city of New York, and perhaps some of those funds can be used for testing. And $15 million will go directly to the New York City School District here in the city of New York. It's also important to know that we have seen, as a result of surveys that have been done by the Department of Health, that what we've seen is more children suffering from depression, anxiety, and other related mental health causes. So it's really important, again, that these funds be used for prevention, and that these funds be used, obviously, to educate individuals about the harmful effects of vaping. Any other questions? Yes. Hi. How are you? Yeah. I can't give you an exact number, but I can say, based upon what my colleagues indicated, that unfortunately a number of these e-cigarettes are now being sold in these illegal cannabis shops. And that's why it's so critically important that New York City and my office have greater enforcement ability to close down these shops. We are working, obviously, with the sheriffs. We are working, obviously, in all 62 counties across the state of New York. And I have beefed up my enforcement staff within the Office of the Attorney General to close down these shops. I'm sorry. Yes, sir. Yes. We are prepared. I think that the fact that the FDA issued that guidance a few days ago just strengthens our hands with respect to these restrictions that are included in the settlement. In addition to that, you know that today there is a hearing. I think it's the House, I believe it's the House that's holding the hearing today with regards to the FDA regulations in allowing e-cigarettes to go forward. We will, again, enhance and strengthen and increase our enforcement measures, working with other law enforcement agencies all across the state of New York. We are committed to, again, educating young children about the dangers of vaping and also closing down these illegal smoke shops, working very closely with, of course, the enforcer, Gail Brewer. Hi, how are you? Yeah, that's an interesting question. I would focus a lot on education. Again, it's a split between the City of New York, which I would imagine would go to the Department of Health, and then funds directly to the Department of Education to focus on education and prevention. And I can't speak for the mayor of the City of New York, but I am hopeful that he will put some of those funds towards enforcement in the City of New York. Yeah. We've seen, also with social media. That is why, we passed and worked with the state legislature. And again, I want to thank the assembly member in her absence, as well as Senator who is here today, who passed the legislation just a few days ago in the middle of the night, a legislation which would ban these dangerous algorithms, these addictive algorithms, and specifically ban these algorithms during midnight hours, between the hours of 8 and 6 a.m. when children sleep. What principals have been telling me, as parents as well, is that children come to school sleepy because they cannot sleep, because they are on because they're on their phones, and because these feeds come to them at all hours of the night. It's really critically important that individuals understand that with the introduction of algorithms, we have seen more children engage in self-harm. Individuals who have engaged in self-mutilation, individuals who have engaged, unfortunately, in depression, individuals who are more suffering from anxiety. The combination of e-cigarettes and social media causes health impacts to our children, mental health impacts to our children. And this Attorney General recognizes and understands the number one issue that I need to focus on is protecting young people here in the state of New York. And joining with my colleagues all over the nation, we have done just that. And so I look forward to, again, focusing on social media, working with the governor of the state of New York and all of the attorney generals. But as you know, as the attorney general of the state of New York has led and we will continue to lead. We led on opioids, we led on social media, we led on Juul, and we will continue to lead, particularly when it comes to my young leaders. Come on up, young leaders. I'm going to present you all with a check. Come on up. Come on, Jalissa. Come on, everybody. Go, go, go.
Did you have to write void on that? Like, if you didn't write void,
Thank you all for coming, and thank you, Governor, for convening us. I want to take a moment to thank everyone who ran for office, those who were victorious, and those who didn't get the results that they worked for. There is nothing more difficult than running for office, and our democracy is better off because of your efforts. We also achieved an important step in our efforts to protect our right to choose in New York, and I want to thank Sasha Ajua for all of her efforts and Donna Lieberman of ACLU for all that they have done to get us to that point. Thank you to all of those who worked so hard to enshrine that right in our Constitution and protected generations to come. I also want to thank New Yorkers for showing up in record numbers to the polls to exercise your most basic and sacred democratic right. And lastly, I congratulate the President-elect Donald Trump. And if possible, we will work with his administration. But we will not compromise our values or our integrity or our principles. We did not expect this result, but we are prepared to respond to this result. And my office has been preparing for several months because we've been here before. We faced this challenge before, and we used the rule of law to fight back. And we are prepared to fight back once again. Because as the Attorney General of this great state, it is my job to protect and defend the rights of New Yorkers and the rule of law. And I will not shrink from that responsibility. You see, between 2019 and 2021, the Office of the Attorney General took nearly 100 legal actions against the previous Trump administration, including when he attempted to cap the state and local tax, and when he sought to eliminate funds and grants for law enforcement officers here in the state of New York. We fought to preserve DACA and protect the Affordable Care Act. We fought to prevent a question about citizenship from being on the census because we were concerned about the impact of funding, the lack of funding to the state of New York and how it would affect how these programs. We beat the Muslim ban. We stopped the dismantling of the United States Postal Service. We challenged anti-LGBTQ+ efforts. We safeguarded key environmental policies, and we protected access to reproductive care, and we protected the right to organize. We worked around the clock to defend these basic rights with our Democratic colleagues across this nation. So as you can see, we know their playbook. We know Project 2025 before it was even published. And we have been working both in my office and with other Democratic AGs across this country to make sure that we would be ready to respond to any attempt to roll back our rights. So here we are. We've studied their platforms. We've identified certain possibilities, fact patterns. We've created contingency plans. So no matter what the next administration throws at us, we're ready. We're ready to respond to their attacks. We're ready to respond to any attempts to cut or eliminate any funding to the great state of New York, as the governor outlined. So despite what has happened on the national stage, we will continue to stand tall in the face of injustice, revenge, or retribution. We will continue to protect and our most vulnerable and marginalized amongst us, because it is my sworn duty and responsibility to lead that fight, working with the governor of this great state, Kathy Hochul. This is not the time to be fearful, New York, but faithful and steadfast, knowing that I, as the Attorney General, along with my entire team, we are guardians of the law, and we are prepared, my friends, to fight back. Thank you. Good evening. Today, justice has been served. Today, we prove that no one is above the law. No matter how rich, powerful, or politically connected you are, everyone must play by the same rules. We have a responsibility to protect the integrity of the marketplace. And for years, Donald Trump engaged in deceptive business practices and tremendous fraud. Donald Trump falsely, knowingly, inflated his net worth by billions of dollars to unjustly enrich himself, his family, and to cheat the system. Donald Trump may have authored the art of the deal, but he perfected the art of the steal. This long-running fraud was intentional, egregious, illegal, and he did all of this with the help of the other defendants, his 2 adult sons and senior executives at the Trump Organization. And so, after 11 weeks of trial, we showed the staggering extent of his fraud and exactly how Donald Trump and the other defendants deceived banks, insurance companies, and other financial institutions for their own personal gain. We proved just how much Donald Trump, his family, and his company unjustly benefited from his fraud. Today, the court, once again, ruled in our favor and in favor of every hard-working American who plays by the rules. Donald Trump and the other defendants were ordered to pay $463.9 million. That represents $363.9 million in disgorgement, plus $100 million in interest, which will continue to increase every single day until it is paid. Donald Trump, the former chief financial officer of the Trump Organization, Alan Weisselberg, and the former controller of the Trump Organization, Jeffrey McConney, are each banned from serving as an officer or director of any New York company for 3 years. Mr. Weisselberg and Mr. McConney are also banned for life from serving in a financial management role in any New York company. Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump are banned from serving as an officer or director of any New York company for 2 years. And Donald Trump and his companies are banned from applying for loans from any New York bank or financial institution for 3 years. A new independent director of compliance will be created at the Trump Organization to ensure the company establishes internal protocols and meets financial reporting obligations. And the current independent external monitor will continue to oversee the company's financial dealings and ensure this fraud cannot continue. I want to be clear. White-collar financial fraud is not a victimless crime. When the powerful break the law and take more than their fair share, there are fewer resources available for working people. small businesses, and families. And everyday Americans cannot lie to a bank about how much money they have in order to get a mortgage to buy a home, or a loan to keep their business afloat, or to send their child to college. And if they did, our government would throw the book at them. I want to thank the entire incredible and hardworking team in my office that tried this case, because the scale and the scope of Donald Trump's fraud is staggering. And so too is his ego and his belief that the rules do not apply to him. Today, we are holding Donald Trump accountable. We are holding him accountable for lying, cheating, and a lack of contrition, and for flouting the rules that all of us must play by. Because there cannot be different rules for different people in this country, and former presidents are no exception. This decision is a massive victory for every American who believes in that simple but fundamental pillar of our democracy, that the rule of law applies to all of us equally, fairly, and justly. Thank you.
Voting, running for office, and reminding us of those sacred rights that we treasure. This has always been a home to places who have supported the March for Civil Rights. So there's no better place to talk about our most important and fundamental right as an American, that is the right to vote. Now, with early voting officially underway, I'm here to update you on our ongoing efforts to uphold the voting process, voting rights, and the voting safety of all New Yorkers over the next couple days, 8 days, and once the polls close. Let me be very clear about this. This work is nonpartisan. It's not about who you vote for. And as governor, it's my duty to protect the right of every citizen to safely participate in our elections. It's a solemn responsibility, and one I take very seriously, as do my partners joining me here today. And I want to acknowledge the incredible work of our Attorney General, Tish James. You'll be hearing from her momentarily about her efforts to make sure that these elections run smoothly and the action she's prepared to take in case of any situations that arise. I want to thank her for always being a champion for New Yorkers and a tremendous partner in government. Senator Kevin Parker has joined us, Assemblymember Rodneyce Bichot-Hermelin, Councilmember Farrell Lewis, also joined by members of my team, the Commissioner of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, Jackie Bray, as well as the Director of Counterterrorism at DISH's, Ben Vos-Gardner, and the Superintendent of State Police, Stephen James, and Counterterrorism, Andrew Crow, and as well as Colin Ahern, our state's Chief Cyber Officer. These are the individuals that I have my confidence in to ensure that the next election in 8 days, ongoing and the weeks and days afterward if necessary, will be ensuring the election integrity of what happens here in New York. As we know, up and down the ballot, you'll be electing your candidates for every office, from city and town councils in some cases, all the way to our congressional representatives, to the President of the United States. Today is day 3 of early voting here in New York, and some of you may have already voted. But no matter when or how you cast your ballot, whether you vote by mail or in person, I hope that New Yorkers will take a moment just to pause and reflect on what that right really means and how fortunate we are as Americans to share in this sacred right. Because almost half of the world's population live in countries where either you cannot vote or your vote has no impact on the outcome of an election. Conversely, here in America, your vote absolutely matters, and that's never something we can take for granted. And there's a long history of our country's battles. Many before us have lost their lives on battlefields, shed blood in our streets, marched, demanding this right. And I think about the brave men and women who've served in our country, in our military, but also in elective office. Like my friend John Lewis, former member of Congress, who was beaten bloody on the Edmund Pettus bridges in the Selma to Montgomery March. Our history has been shaped by patriots and pioneers who fought to protect this precious right. Also been protected by unsung heroes, those whose names will not appear in history books, but do the essential work of upholding our democracy. These individuals, they have jobs, they have kids, they have parents to take care of, yet they still give of their time and their energy as our poll workers and elections inspectors. It's a remarkable gesture of patriotism on their part as well. So to all the election volunteers, the workers, poll workers, I want to thank you because your work stabilizes our democracy and truly makes a difference. And it's because of you. Our fire stations and school gyms and libraries, community centers, and places like this one are transformed into hallowed places. We all go to exercise the most fundamental right in our democracy. Now, as I've traveled the state a great deal recently, a number of people have expressed concerns about this election, especially with some of the inflammatory and extremist rhetoric and misinformation you've seen on social media feeds or heard from your friends or neighbors or relatives. That's what I want to address today. I'm here to assure you that we have measures in place to ensure the election process runs smoothly and safely for everyone. New Yorkers should be confident that no matter where you live or where you vote, you'll be able to cast that vote safely and without issue. Because over the past year, teams from various agencies, Homeland Security and Emergency Services, our Office of Information Technology Services, our cybersecurity offices, they have been hard at work preparing for all scenarios in this election. They've gamed them out in close coordination with boards of elections and are ready to be there to support any way necessary. Now that could be anything from dealing with a power outage to internet to service disruptions to weather-related road closures. We've seen it all in every corner of the state. And it's this cooperation and partnership that will ensure that every voter can cast their ballot, have it voted, no matter what happens. Also, on top of these interagency preparations, New York has invested the resources necessary, $100 million, $140 million in state and federal funds to modernize our election infrastructure here in New York. Now, that's money well spent, upgrading equipment, improving security protocols at boards of elections around the state. We're also investing significant dollars in new e-poll books and postage for local boards of elections. In the last few years, counties have received almost $11 million to strengthen cybersecurity. And as you make your plans to vote, if you're not already, some of you may encounter misinformation, whether it's an incorrect polling site, unfounded claims that votes aren't being counted, or false, misleading images produced by artificial intelligence. On social media, baseless theories can spread like wildfire, making it hard to separate fact from fiction. And whether it's inaccurate rumors that circulate intentionally or by accident, the end result could be the same. Voters are worried. They feel disenfranchised, disillusioned about our democratic system. But we're not powerless. Together, we can stop the false rumors from spreading. Here's how you can help. If you spot incorrect information about the election, your polling place, anything that does not seem right to you, contact your Board of Elections. We'll get that information out to all of you. Second, if you get your voting information directly from the Board of Elections. Just go to elections.ny.gov. And with a few easy clicks, you can find out information on how and where to vote and learn about the exhaustive measures in place to protect the integrity of this election. Now, it's also very possible that we won't have some clear winners in every race on election night. Tallying all the votes and declaring all the official winners can take time. That's totally normal, especially in tight races. So that leads me to the last thing I want to discuss today, and that's the immediate aftermath of the election. A recent poll shows that 62% of Americans, 62%, worry about post-election violence, that it could be at least somewhat likely. Now, that's extremely disturbing. That has not been the case in the past. It reflects the concerns I've also heard from people concerned at diners and the coffee shops and union halls. Today, I want to ease those concerns and to promise you that New York stands ready to manage any election-related protests, demonstrations, or whatever in the hours and days following November 5th. I've directed the New York State Police and the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services to assist local law enforcement agencies statewide to ensure that any large gatherings or protests remain peaceful and safe. We have the best of the best, both within the New York State Police as well as on Commissioner Bray's team. They're trained for this. They've been tabletopping this. They're prepared for this over months and months, and if not years, preparing for these days. As always, my top priority is keeping New Yorkers safe. And we can and we will uphold the right to free speech while protecting public safety. The work we've done in advance of this election that I've spoken to you about is part of a larger mission to expand and protect access to the ballot box. That's why back in 2022, when voting rights were under siege in states nationwide, I signed the most expansive state-level Voting Rights Act in the country. The John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act cracks down on voter suppression, deception, and intimidation. We've made it possible for New Yorkers to vote early by mail. We made it easier with early voting and training for poll workers, safeguarding absentee ballots, also enacting protection against AI in political communications. And we've helped young people and traditionally underrepresented groups to register and cast their ballot. Because we know that democracy is stronger when everyone participates. I'll close with this. 176 years ago, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Lucretia Mott, and roughly 300 other brave women and a few enlightened men gathered in Seneca Falls, New York, where they launched the nation's women's suffrage movement. They were willing to take risks, being alienated from society, their families, because they wanted a real say in the world around them, and they knew that voting was the only way. It was true then and remains true today. So I urge all of you to get out there, make your voices heard, honor those who fought this fight for decades and if not centuries, and do so with the full confidence that we're ensuring that your access to your polling place will be safe, easy, and accessible. Now I'll turn it over to my great partner, New York State Attorney General Letitia James, who can talk more about what her office is doing to protect New Yorkers from election-related misinformation. Attorney General James.
Good morning. I want to thank Governor Hochul and Commissioner Bray and all of my partners here today for ensuring a safe and smooth election process for every community in New York. As of this weekend, the 2024 election is officially underway in New York, and we saw record numbers of New Yorkers participate in early voting this weekend. Already, hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers have cast their votes. And over the next week, we anticipate millions more, including many in this very building. New York has a long history of free and fair elections, and this year will be no different. But we know that tensions are high, and some of you might be worried. So I want to take this moment to reassure you. My office, along with our partners at the federal, state, and local level, have been preparing for a smooth and safe election. And I want to be clear. There are no active issues or threats at this time, but we are here to make sure that New Yorkers know we are still prepared and taking this very seriously. My team has made it a priority to ensure New Yorkers have the information and resources they need to vote, including to know what their rights are, to combat potential misinformation and disinformation, and to create a coordinated plan for election protection with those partners at every level of government, because we are committed to making sure New Yorkers are well protected, safe, informed, and free from intimidation when they cast their votes this election. And we are taking this
on from every angle. Now, we know that there are those out there who might try to get people to stay home and stay quiet this election. Voter suppression efforts and misinformation are not new. Individuals use scare tactics, intimidations, and threats to basically deny individuals their fundamental right to vote. And over the years, we've shut down several attempts to scare voters into staying home. In fact, we stopped a dangerous robocall campaign that targeted black voters in upstate New York and falsely told them that if they voted by mail during the height of the COVID pandemic, that their personal information would be used by the police, that they would allow credit card companies to collect debts, and the CDC would track individuals for mandatory vaccinations. Not only was this patently false, it was illegal, and the goal was to scare people out of voting for a certain candidate. And we successfully shut these individuals down who operated in 3 states, and we coordinated with our partners in those 3 states. We also know that disinformation can take a variety of forms, and as the threats evolve, so do our enforcement efforts. Now, Americans are facing a new challenge, and that is AI-generated election misinformation. And these deep fakes can be dangerous, and they're getting harder and harder to spot. And that's why we put out a guide to help prevent AI misinformation and provided tips about how to spot fake content, to report it, and to seek accurate information about the elections. You should never rely on AI chat box to answer questions about elections or voting. And if you receive a phone call with information about voting or elections, be vigilant. That information may be inaccurate or fake. Remember to verify information with official sources. We also have been working with social media companies to address disinformation and specifically ensure that they are cracking down on this misleading AI-generated content. My office is also working with officials around the state to make sure they know the law and are ready to support voters. And while we don't anticipate any major disruptions on Election Day, we have been working for months to ensure that we can respond to any issues that do arise. And that includes coordinating closely with local authorities to identify and respond quickly to any concerns in their communities. It's important that everyone understand that it is illegal to intimidate, to threaten, to coerce voters in any way. It is illegal to bring any firearm into a polling site. It is illegal to photograph, to videotape, or otherwise harass voters at the poll. We are working with state and federal law enforcement partners to prepare for any potential issue that might exist on Election Day. If you experience any form of voter misinformation or intimidation, or have any issues at the polls, we want to know about it. My office operates an election protection hotline for every single primary and election day in New York. It opened this past weekend for the start of early voting. It is open today, and it will remain open from now until the day after the election on November 6th. We have attorneys and other experts available to address any issues that you might encounter. And you can contact the hotline by calling 1-800-390-2992. Again, 1-866-390-2992. 1-866-390-2992. Or filing a complaint online, electionhotline.ag.ny.gov. electionhotline.ag.ny.gov. My office is there to help people in real time, whether you're having trouble voting or you're witnessing voter intimidation at your poll site. And this hotline is a resource for all New Yorkers. My final message I want to make very, very clear. Your right to vote is fundamental. Your right to vote is sacred. Your right to vote is constitutional. And I will not let it be challenged or threatened. No matter who you are voting for, or how you choose to vote, whether by mail, at your early voting site, or in person on Election Day. You have the right to feel safe, protected, and empowered when you head to the polls. And my office will continue to do everything in their power to defend your right to vote. This is going to be a safe, free, and fair election in New York. And I hope you will make your voices heard at the voting booth. It is your most sacred democratic right. It is your voice. It is your power. Please vote. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. I'm just going to provide a little bit of detail on the preparations that the state has been making. My name's Jackie Bray. I'm the Commissioner of Homeland Security and Emergency Services. Certainly want to echo what both the governor and the attorney general said. New York's elections are safe and secure. They have been safe and secure for many, many years, and this year will be no different. We have put measures in place to ensure that the process runs smoothly and safely. Since 2016, New York State, the State Board of Elections, our federal partners, our local partners have held 23 tabletop exercises in order to test and train our election security, our election cybersecurity processes. Under this governor's leadership, we've expanded best-in-class anti-virus software to all New York State counties. That software extends to all county boards of elections. We have regular calls. In fact, they started several days ago, and they will go clear through the election as voting is underway. And so every single day, our partners, the State Board of Election, at law enforcement, at our cybersecurity teams, my teams are on the phone checking in, confirming that everything's running smoothly. That could be from, a regular maintenance power outage all the way to something that's unique or new or specific happening this year. I also want to talk a little bit, as the governor and the attorney general have, about what we can do about misinformation or disinformation. Misinformation is just inaccurate information. Disinformation is information that's used in a specific effort to mislead. And these are really rumors that get shared online. Often we are finding from foreign adversaries. And one of the things that New Yorkers can do, and that I would just ask everyone to do, is to not share posts where you don't know where it's coming from. I think sometimes we think, I don't know how to stop that. I'm one person. But in truth, the way social media works, we each spread information exponentially when we share posts. And so when it comes to election information, particularly information about when, where, and how to vote, if it's not coming directly from your county board of elections or your state board of election, don't share it without verifying it with those boards of elections. You can be a really important part of stopping the rumors that are spreading online. And so you can do that by not sharing it until you check it. You can check that information at elections.ny.gov. And I just want to, early voting is starting. New Yorkers are voting. Over 705,000 New Yorkers have already voted. It's going to be a historic year. And so certainly want everyone to come out and vote, but really just want everyone to know that we are prepared. We have been exercising and training for the last 8 years. We have the resources, thanks to Governor Hochul, out ready to deploy and already in place. None of our voting machines are tied to the internet. All of our voting machines are best in class, and so New Yorkers can feel safe and ready, and we are prepared to maintain that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I want to thank our speakers. We're going to take everyone off stage, and the governor will come back to do a little bit of question and answers after. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
We'll dismiss everyone else, and we can do politics after, if we so choose.
All right. Thank you for joining us. I just want to remind all New Yorkers as they cast their ballots this week that there are no credible threats to the election integrity of our systems here in the state of New York, but we are on vanguard to make sure that we are prepared for all scenarios. And I want to thank our Attorney General for deploying her office, as she always has, as a resource, but also an enforcer to ensure that there is no intimidation, that our laws are followed, and also to our Commissioner of Homeland Security, Jackie Bray, who has been working tirelessly with law enforcement, our local boards of elections, and all of us to ensure that these elections are conducted smoothly and safely. Any questions?
On topic, election security. Love to hear it. All right, thanks, AG. Thanks, Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, any offs? Marla, go ahead.
Certainly, there's always large crowds when circuses come to town. There's a lot of curiosity seekers, people, and also I'm sure there's many supporters there as well. So they have their right to gather. They have their right to have their voice heard. This is America. This is New York. But what was said by the speakers before Donald Trump and even what he said just reminded everyone as he makes his closing argument why he should never, ever step foot again in the Oval Office. And last night, I was with a gathering of bodega owners, over 700 individuals who gathered in the Bronx, and they were stunned, many Latinos, Latinas, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, Haitians, who were stunned at the scale of ferocity levied against them, the hatred that was spewed out of the mouths of speakers at Donald Trump's event. It was shocking even by today's standards. To call Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage, I represent 1 million Puerto Ricans. I am disgusted by that characterization. Donald Trump himself also called America a garbage dump. I'm speechless. What are you talking about? You talk about my grandparents who came here seeking a better life? They're garbage. Your grandparents, people who came 100 years ago, people who came yesterday, they're garbage. This is a good country. And we have to get back to the guiding principles that we are what we are as Americans because of our diversity. And I honor that, especially as a place that is proud to have Ellis Island in our harbor, the place these individuals have come through, many of them. So I reject, with every fiber of my being, the sentiment, the words, the hatred that was spewed at that event, and I'm shocked and saddened that it happened in the great state of New York. The hypocrisy of Donald Trump and any Republican running for Congress here in the state of New York of criticizing the number of individuals coming across the border, especially from Mexico, criticizing them when you had the solution in your hands, a bipartisan solution. Bipartisan, what does that mean? A conservative senator, Democrats, House, Senate, came together with President Biden, Vice President Harris, to formulate a solution, because immigration has been a wildly complicated issue since I worked on it on Capitol Hill as a staffer for Senator Moynihan. It is difficult, but they figured out a strategy, a compromise, a plan that would have ensured that our borders are maintained, that we restrict the flow of individuals coming, that there is a legal path before they come to the borders for citizenship, that we increase border protections, more border security. And Donald Trump told the leadership, Republican leadership in Washington, to kill it because it would have helped Democrats politically. They have no ground to stand on to criticize immigration in this country today because the answer was within their reach and they took it out and destroyed it. So I'm not even listening to their arguments.
On the immigration, if Donald Trump is constantly beating the drum that immigrants are causing crime and they are murdering people and how they contribute to an increase in crime?
No. No. Statistically, they're no more apt to commit a crime than anyone who's been as a natural-born citizen here. No, there are no statistics that bear out a higher increase in crime being committed by newly arrived individuals. So that's just a part of a long list of falsehoods that we have to be aware of, that we have to call out, that Americans who listen to this and believe it need to know that they're being lied to by Donald Trump and the Republicans who are manipulating this system for their own political gain. It is basically un-American, and I've had enough of it.
Anything else? Channel 2, Channel 7? All right, thanks, guys.
Appreciate you coming out. Thanks.